Are we all ready? Feels like the first page got a lot longer. All right, welcome to this meeting of the Hermosa Beach City School District, Wednesday, April 10th. We will start with a call to order. And a roll call, please, Dinah.
Board Member Barrow.
Present.
Board Member Gardner.
Present.
Board Member Bove LaMonica. Present. President Clute.
Present.
4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you very much. All right. We'll now move on to public comments regarding closed session agenda items. Public comments from the audience to the board. Members of the audience may address the board regarding closed session agenda items. Comments from visitors shall not exceed 3 minutes unless waived by the majority of all the board members. Seeing nobody present. Dinah, is there anybody online?
No one is online.
Okay, then we can adjourn for the closed session. All right. we're going to open the open session here with a, nothing to report, by the way, from the closed session. Can I get a call to order and a roll call?
Board Member Barrow,
Present.
Board Member Gardner,
Present.
Board Member Bove LaMonica. Present. President Cluth.
Present.
4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you very much. Oh, now it says no report from closed session. See, I should have read this in it. It's okay. Nothing to report from closed session. All right, let's rise for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Doug.
Second.
Thank you, Maggie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, agenda is approved. Moving on to the next item, announcements. Ms. Gill, please.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Hi, Melinda. There you are. So tonight, it was with great honor that I present. Melinda has won an award. She is the Elementary Teacher of the Year for the Industrial and Technology Award. She'll be acknowledged in April at Knott's Berry Farm. Very fun. Be careful on the roller coasters. I have to tell a quick story that I was telling Melinda before the session opened. So when I learned that I got the job at Hermosa Beach, my former superintendent, he was like, well, congratulations. He's like, you know, out of all the employees I had, there was one that got away. You know, Redondo has like, you know, probably over his 16-year tenure, like, I don't know, tens of thousands of employees. And he's like, Melinda Gill. I'm like, wow, you know this person? And so he still remembered that Melinda Gill was released as a temporary teacher and that Sylvia hired her. And he's like, was still like flustered about it, like almost like a decade later. So after working with Melinda, I sincerely concur and understand why Melinda is just such an incredible teacher. The recognition goes a long way because what she does with Sparks and STEAM is just incredible. And it's hard too, because, you know, Melinda is like the STEAM teacher. She works with babies though. Like she does these like, you know, advanced, like, you know, STEAM projects with kindergartners. And like, I can't tell you, like, for anyone that's done elementary, how hard that must be. We just like take it for granted that she's great at it. And then the thing I really just want to stress, I mean, like that I really appreciate Melinda is just such a team player, so positive, so like, how can we do this? How can we get it done? She comes to, you mean like all kinds of events that go beyond the school day and is just such a good ambassador for our STEAM program. And I really do feel that one of the reasons that our parents and our families celebrate STEAM, it's always one of the #1 requested things when they do the HBF survey, is because their first experience in it is with you. So congratulations, this is so well deserved. I wanna give a shout out, it's Carol, right? You mean like the nomination? Terry Price like gave her the nomination through the STEAM program that's recognized at Knott's Berry Farm, and just kudos to Terry for nominating you, and just congratulations. We're super happy for you. And now we get to put you on the spot and you get to see a few words. But before I do, I would like to present you with the Hermosa Beach Wave.
Wow, thank you so
I know.
much. Thank you, guys.
Your second wave.
Your second
Yeah,
wave.
man, clean it up.
I'm just gonna ride the wave as often as I can, but thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate this and the acknowledgement, but I also appreciate the fact that I get to do this. I get to do this amazing job with these great kids, and I learn from them as they learn, and it's wonderful. So, you know, I think the CITEA is an amazing organization that recognizes from kinders all the way up through high school, and to be a part of this is just a great, great honor. So thank you all very much. I appreciate you. So thanks.
Quentin, if you could join us for.
I will, but I think that I had some, my board colleagues might have
I just want to
comments.
say, Melinda, I've had such a pleasure working with you. You are my nephew Eli's favorite teacher.
Yeah.
He loves, and like everything you do, every student learns differently, and he loves the way you teach, and he loves doing all the little projects that you do. That is like what strikes happiness with him. So as an aunt, I'm very grateful. But I just still think about the time when we were able to get away to go to Google. And we did such a fun trip, and it was a real opportunity for professional development and like the time you took to grow as an educator, and you always take advantages of these
It was
opportunities.
a great opportunity and that
So thank
was
you for keep growing.
wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I haven't had any kids or nephews or nieces in there, but I have seen you in action and I'm very, very impressed and obviously very well deserved. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm
Okay.
gonna text
Yeah.
Lisa
Tell Lisa hi
and
for me.
Steven. Yeah. Give them a hard time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so
Congratulations.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Thank you.
All right, that's a fantastic way to start things. Next, we go to public comment. All right, public comments from the audience. So members of the audience may address the board on any topic regardless of whether it is listed on the agenda. However, the board may not discuss issues raised that are not listed on the agenda. Topics not on the agenda that are brought to the board's attention may be investigated by the administration and a report made to the board either publicly or privately at a future meeting. Comments from visitors shall not exceed 3 minutes per individual speaker unless waived by a majority of all the members of the board. With that, I'll ask, are there any members of the public who want to make comment tonight? Not seeing any in person. Dinah, do we have anybody in virtual comment?
No virtual comments.
All right, with that, we will then move on from public comment to the next item, which is the superintendent update.
Thank you, Quentin. First off, big shout out to our community and the HBF for Hearts of Hermosa. I know that many of us were there that night having a grand old time. So it was just a really incredible night. They broke all sorts of records that evening off the auction and off of sales. So it really is, when people say like, what is Hearts of Hermosa? I'm like, it's a celebration of Hermosa and like the schools. I mean, that really is what it is. And so getting just to see all of our parents having a good time. We love our kids, but without their kids. It's a really rewarding event. And I just want to say thank you to the community for your support. I mean, like, and we put those dollars to work, you know what I mean? Like, and we take it seriously. So thank you. On Sunday, April 14th, the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles is doing a beach cleanup at Hermosa Beach, along with a lot of other groups. I'll be attending with Matilda. Looking forward to that. So I encourage folks to come on down. We gave it a plug in our newsletter this week. But you know, appreciate that organization and various groups investing in Hermosa and keeping our beach clean. So happy to go down there and join them, and we'll have fun. Then on the we're having a community meetings on April 11th and April 15th at 6 p.m. at the Valley NPR for our facilities improvement community forums. We really want to hear our community's feedback about some projects that we have in mind in order to build up our schools. We've done a great job modernizing 2 schools, and we want to make sure that Hermosa Valley, is on par with our other 2 sites. And we need that community feedback. To make sure that we're on the right track for what we're thinking of. So please come join us. Your feedback is so incredibly valuable. Next, this is one of my favorites. On April 17th, the Community Advisory Committee Awards. That really translates into parents nominate special education staff, including general education teachers, that have gone above and beyond. We have 2 speech and language and our paraeducator, and is that Trish? Kristen Monsipay, that's a good, yeah. So Kristen and Emily are being acknowledged that evening. It's at Redondo Union High School. And we have a great team. We have great families that we work with. And so looking forward to enjoying that. The board has a board workshop on April 22nd. That is to work on our goals. So looking forward to that work. Meetings open to the public. And then open house, View is on April 24th, Valley is on April 25th, and Vista is on May 2nd. Poor Laura Harris, she'll be schlepping around to all those different sites. We have some families that are on 3 of the sites, so we appreciate you if you're listening. And it's going to be a great night. I love open house. Our teachers put in so much work. The kids get to showcase their work. So please come join us. Make it a point to go. And then finally, my very own, my LA Rams are coming to Hermosa for the draft, and they're going to do a lot of different activities, but they're doing Play 60, which is a big NFL program, and all of our school sites are going to participate. They put us first in line for the activities. It's going to be super fun. And so the week of April 29th, all of our schools will be participating in one way or another down at Pier Avenue. So it's going to be fun and a lot of coordination. So good stuff. And that concludes my superintendent update. Questions?
Any questions?
Quick question. The open house, will that be something that we're inviting the community to?
Yes, there's a general open invite to the community, and we always get parents that either from new parents that are coming in or parents who are thinking about coming in, come and join in. It's open invite. And we actually moved our open house up from prior years to make sure that it was more in alignment for those parents that are on the fence about deciding to come to Hermosa schools.
But will we be inviting our community partners like the Rotaries, the Kiwanis, the libraries, the?
I can look into that, and I'll follow up with a board update.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Superintendent Johnson. All right, with that, we will move on to item 9, public hearing. Item H, 03-23/24, hearing on the Hermosa Beach Educators Association initial proposal and Hermosa Beach City School District joint initial proposal. Public comment is requested.
Yes, thank you, HBA, for working together on our getting our sunshine proposals out there so we can begin our negotiations on the earlier side. And this is an opportunity for public comment on those proposals, which are in our board agenda. Thank you.
So open question, if any folks in the audience had any public comment on that? Seeing none, do we need a motion to
Need a
close the
motion to
hearing?
close public comment. Yep.
All right, can I get a motion? Thank you, Maggie.
Second.
Thank you, Doug, for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Public comment closed. All right, the next item, item 10, board reports. I'll start over on my left. Doug? No? Okay. That's not true, Doug, but
In regards to board reports, I have nothing.
The South Bay Coalition Against Hate had their monthly meeting last week. A couple announcements. One, this Sunday, April 14th, is a beach cleanup hosted here in Hermosa Beach. It's entitled Good Deeds Day in partnership with a lot of religious communities, in addition to the Community Coalition Against Hate, and it's being sponsored by Assemblyman Muratsuchi. So that is 9:30 to 11:30 down at the pier in partnership with Heal the Bay. The next one up is they're looking for representatives for the United Against Hate Week for the 3rd week of September. So if somebody wants to join that planning committee, if not, I'm there anyways. Lastly, there is a hate crimes report for the County of Los Angeles that was just published. Unfortunately, it's off of the data going from 2020 to 2022 because it takes them a year and a half to compile and then publish the data. So it feels a little untimely, but it was an important report to look at in terms of how we do that. And we had a long conversation about ensuring that different public agencies are elevating hate crimes as they occur and what that looks like. So more information if you need it. And that was it. Thank you.
thank you very much, Maggie.
Like Doug, I have nothing to report.
All right. Jason, is this an appropriate point in the meeting for me to comment on a book you and I discussed that I've been reading related to education and boys in our schools, or is that something more roundtable-ish?
Can you just remind me again what the subject matter?
It was an excellent book I read, I've been in the middle of, called Of Boys and Men, and it talked about
Oh, yes, sorry.
achievement.
Yeah, I think roundtable would be a good
Not
space
table?
for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Then I will pass on any other board report at this point. And move on to superintendent report and board discussion. The first item is R30-23/24, Culture of Excellence, Dr. Johnson.
I'm not getting a response on this, so will you call it from? Okay, great, thank you. Good evening, board. So this is our annual presentation on progress of our overarching goal of culture of excellence. There you see as part of our guiding principles there, and academic achievement, and extracurriculars are very important for our overall student success. What we look at here is our summary of our report. We're at trimester 2, so this is kind of like the benchmark point before we do our final assessment, which is the state testing, or sometimes referred to as CASP. So this is sort of like the point where we're like, okay, this is where we're at, and here's what we're going to work on for the next trimester to get their students to where they need to be by the end of the school year. We're on pace for our 3 to 5% annual growth goal per cohort, which I'll explain. Reading achievement, which has always been a primary focus for the last 4 years, seems to have been positively affected by our foundations program. And then we're going to continue with that focus to support our below grade level leaders. And I'll explain a little bit about the expansion of that programming. So I'm about to show you and the public a lot of data. I'm going to breeze through it. I strongly encourage the public, if you're watching, to digest this data in a more slow fashion than what we will be moving through tonight. But overall, what you're going to see is a lot of different looks of where the progress is at trimester 2. And something to bear in mind is we're in the middle of our progress. So this is not where we're going to finish. This is where we're at. So what you see here is math performance, and this is math performance over the past 3 years at trimester 2, and the assessment system that we're using is iReady. And there you see progress in relation to the prior year, 3% behind last year, but we're still on target for our growth goal. This is a deeper look, and this shows iReady math progress level at trimester 2 for multiple years at the same point in time. So as an example, if you look at 5th grade, currently our students, 69% of them meet or exceed the standard at the trimester 2 mark. Last year, when they were in 4th grade, at the same point in time, 85% of them were meeting or exceeding the standard. And then the year before that, when they were in 3rd grade, 63% of them were meeting or exceeding the standard. As I mentioned before, it's important to keep in mind that this is progress in time, right? So this is not, the completion of the school year. In many ways, a lot of our students are ahead. While there is a decline from prior years, I think it's important to contextualize that data, as I will in the next slide. So each year, the way that we evaluate our school district is we look at what we call cohort, right? So rather than comparing 5th grade performance over multiple years with different students each year. So, for example, 5th graders in 21-22 is different than 5th graders in 22-23 and 23-24. In our case, what we do is we look at that same group of students over multiple years to know what impact are we having on those students the longer they're traveling through our system year by year. And so in this slide, what we're evaluating is the annual growth goal. So I'm going to take the 5th grade example again. At trimester 2, 69% of our students currently, are meeting or exceeding the standard. Last year, at the end of the year, on CASP, 80% of students met or exceeded the standard. So the goal for this year is that those students will grow from last year between 3 and 5%. So where that 69% needs to land is at 82%. Now, if you look forward and look at sixth grade, that group has already exceeded their growth goal for this school year, you mean like by cohort. So if you look to the right in the summary, you can see those grade levels that have already exceeded their growth goal, and you look at those grade levels that are currently making progress towards their growth goal.
Can I ask a specific question off of that?
Mm.
So I see a 2% growth off of sixth and seventh grade. Where am I missing the 3rd percent?
Say,
It's going from 76 to 78% and 67% to 69%, which is a 2% growth. So where am I
that might be a
missing that?
decimal. It might be a decimal rounding. Other questions? All right. Next, we have the iReady English Language Arts, and there you see overall progress. Same thing, it's about a 3% difference between this and last year. We're still on target for our growth goals overall. Here you see a breakdown by cohort. You mean like, so going back to the 5th grade example, the blue is when they were 3rd graders at trimester 2. The yellow is when they were 4th graders. And the green is today at trimester 2. Overall, we're making positive progress. We have seen declines in 2 of the grade levels. One is a multi-year decline. And the important thing about this type of data to make note of is that this is the data that we put in the hands of our teachers, and then they go deeper, I mean like on a domain level. So what areas are their class of students struggling and that they need to focus on within the next trimester? And then on an individual level, I mean like which students you mean like are struggling in certain domain areas, and either that student participate in an intervention or that teacher is going to structure their instruction to focus on those areas of highest need prior to the end of the school year. Here on slide 9, you see an evaluation of the annual growth goals, like in math. There you see the grade levels that have exceeded or met their annual growth goal, and 2nd, 3rd, and 8th grade that are in progress towards. Moving on to Fontes and Pinnell, this is the reading results by grade level from trimester 1 to trimester 2. And there you see where the students were at the beginning of the year and now where we're at currently. The trimester 1 assessments were taken in about November. Trimester 2 was taken in within February and March. What we've always done is we've tried to create fidelity between multi-assessments. You mean like, and that helps us understand where our focuses need to be. So there you see the results between F&P reading assessment and the iReady ELA assessment. I would say this year is like a moderate fidelity between the two. It is the 2nd highest. You mean like last year was by far the closest and level of fidelity outcomes at trimester 2. And then, you know, this year, like our focus has been less so on the fidelity to the assessment and more so on what they do with the results. That was a piece of feedback from the professional development survey and for our grade level teams. So we stand by, you mean like we're working on instruction with a reading coach, and when they have this information, what do they do with it? You mean like, how do they support students in the classroom? Here you see a breakdown of reading performance from trimester 1 to trimester 2. There you can see we're making overall progress in grades 1 through 5. However, there's still a group of students that we're working on. This is a breakdown by school for F&P results. One noticing that we definitely have is that from trimester 1, you mean like to trimester 2, that we're definitely seeing a noticeable increase in students reading on grade level. And we do link that to the participation in foundations. A lot of the work, you mean like of instruction that we saw deficits in last year was phonemic awareness. You mean like phonics and a little bit of vocabulary. And so that has been successful, that implementation, and we feel like that we're producing better decoding this year. And there you can see there's better results.
Clarification off that though, foundations has only been introduced in grades 1 and 2, right? It hasn't moved up to 3 yet?
Sylvia Kinder, yeah. Yeah.
But 2 is the highest, so it's gone. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. So moving on over to Vista, you see the second grade performance, and then you see the pretty noticeable decline again where Foundation's been implemented. And then in third and fourth grade, they've made good progress. At third grade and fourth grade, it's a little more flat. And we're looking forward to introducing Foundations at third grade. That's part of the implementation of the program, that the program will not allow you to implement at third grade until students have received that base of instruction in second grade. Having gone through curriculum adoptions such as Eureka, that makes total sense to me. There's just an onboarding process that like it would just be hard to jumpstart them at a higher grade level without a foundation. And then finally at Hermosa Valley, pretty flat in the performance. And so they have actually been working a little more closely with Jessica and the reading coach to talk about introducing intervention through because like they're obviously engaged in more higher level critical thinking and activities through book studies. And so we've been talking about how to form small groups that still reach those higher level skills, but you mean like are addressing, you mean like that, 11% of learners who are struggling and reading below grade level. Here is a continued goal where we are triangulating assessments between the iReady benchmark, benchmarks that are given, which would be how you would think of like finals at the high school, and then grading practices. And it's been a good road. I give kudos to the Hermosa Valley team for working with Principal Bledsoe. But where we are at this point is that the grades have each done a great job in getting a standardized benchmark per each trimester that is cumulative as a practice, where you mean like they take a final test. And now we're producing data where we can see a comparison between iReady as a standardized assessment, and that benchmark assessment that is capturing all that a student has learned within that trimester. As you can see, there's still a big discrepancy between the number of students that are below grade level on standardized assessments or the benchmark and the number of students that are receiving Ds and Fs for grade distribution. By no means are we advocating for more students to receive Ds and Fs, but it is really important for teachers to have access to this data so they can see that discrepancy, and it further helps them establish, is what we grade our students on, and what we assess our students on linked to what we're teaching in the classroom. And that, just makes for more targeted, more standards-based instruction, because there's a reflection to look at of how that plays out. And then our goal for students and parents, is to ensure that what we're communicating to our families about their child's progress, is pretty accurate to how that child, has an understanding of standards mastery. So, if we say, by standard, being able to write the 5-paragraph essay, and, their grades, are representative of, a B or an A, then theoretically, right, that student, when they take a standardized assessment, they should get the equivalent of a B or an A on that standardized assessment when they're writing a 5-paragraph essay. That's our goal. And we're working toward here. I think the most important thing is not the outcomes in this case, so much as the practice and of engaging in these conversations, because I think it makes good collaborative conversations about, hey, are our grading practices, reflective of student mastery, of the content standards? That's a really, really hard, deep work, and I commend Hermosa Valley and teachers for working on that. I think that we're going to continue to see better outcomes and better alignment between these things. And the goal is not to get the D and Fs up for the grade distribution. The goal is to get the standardized assessments, more students meeting grade level, so getting those numbers down. And there you see a breakdown of math. We've always noticed that there's actually been a higher alignment in math for iReady and the assessments that they're giving. That makes sense because math is more naturally assessment based. So that correlation we've noticed last year as well too. And then this is always like a data point that we are very cognizant of. We know that we're a very high performing school district, but wellness is a very high priority. So we do a comparison between the overall measure of how much do you feel like you belong at school in comparison with how our students are achieving. So there you see the data point that we evaluate, the question that we evaluate. And then for the last 2 years, we've been comparing that outcome to achievement levels. I think it's food for thought data, just making sure that as our achievement is rising, that we are cognizant that student social emotional wellness, is also rising and not declining. I think that there is some correlation between these statistics, and I think it's reflective of national averages, but we have our eye on it. And I think it's just important recognizing the whole child, and that as we push our students, as we want to push our students to excellence, that we're also making sure that they're living balanced lives. Kudos, Sylvia. This has been our dream. So we did establish, last year we established the Power School Student Assessment Tracker. So all of the assessments that you see here are being uploaded into a student's Power School data profile. And so from year to year, rather than the teacher having to go and pulling it out of the CUME file and be like, what did they do last year? That it's all uploaded into Power School where a teacher can access that information at a click. Now what we've done is we've opened it up to parents where you don't have to go and say, hey, can I get my CUME file? It's just, you click the button and you can look at your child's assessment scores for the multi-years for the time that they're going to be with us in Hermosa. So very exciting. It's the next step. Sylvia and Vicky worked very, very hard on this. So just super kudos. And we're going to keep on working on promoting it, getting parents to access it. That's always the tough part. It's like, where was that email? So we want to make that connection, and super proud of this work. Just the goal is that, vertical articulation, all these processes are speaking with each other. This is the assessment calendar. This just gives the board and the community just a sense that, all of these assessments that we give, we think long and hard, and we plan to try to create balance over the course of the year. So we're already starting to plan for 24-25, but we are cognizant that we assess and survey our students a lot. And we stand by that practice, but it is very intentional. And there you see a schedule that's coinciding with the intervention sessions. So all these pieces work together to help give our teachers, our parents, and the board the information they need in order to make decisions about how can we do better. So as next steps, out of this, we're going to continue with our professional development practice of instructional rounds. We've gotten I've heard good feedback about the iReady grade level professional developments, particularly the data talks that our principals have been leading. So we're going to continue to lean into that so our teachers are able to understand what their students need in time. We're going to refine our strategy with the reading specialists. This was a learning year about how to utilize that position. So we are working on re-strategizing. We had a change this year with the staffing, but we want to make sure that we're using that reading specialist to the maximum of our ability. So that's been part of our principals meetings, looking at the data about how to best utilize that position. And then, of course, continuing with our reading coach, which we talked about our workshop. This has been great. Our reading coach has great relationships with our staff. And I think that the reading coach now is moving into they're going to start visiting our classrooms and watching practice and giving feedback in that way beyond just data talks and professional development. And then next year, with the success of foundations and we're seeing the results, we're excited about bringing that up to the 3rd grade level and creating that base of instruction from TK to 3rd with phonics. Thank you. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Dr. Justin. Look at my colleagues. All right, Kathy.
Dr. J, such a good run through the data. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really would like to highlight and compliment the district for getting back to where we were that first year after 2022. It looks like off of our data for the off of our panorama climate surveys was really intentional. We had such a drop like in 2023, and watching it come back and in some cases exceed where we were in 2022 when students were just grateful to be back in community with one another is kudos to everybody in terms of bringing the culture up. I think what I wanted to go further into was off of slide 9. And I'm trying to understand how we pulled this data here. So we have the green as 2023 trimester 2. We have the yellow from last year of 22-23, and then the gray column is a projected growth.
Correct. It's a goal. So it's not a projected growth. It is a goal that we have for each of our grade levels, where we aim for 3 to 5% growth per cohort.
Mhm.
So the yellow is where those kids finished the prior year.
Mhm.
I mean, like, so where we want them to get the following year, same group of kids, is 3 to 5% better achievement. I mean, like from the previous year where they finished. So as to talk through an example, I mean, like in 5th grade, use that example, 81% of students currently, I mean, like, are meeting or exceeding the standard by the iReady trimester 2. Last year, when they were 4th graders, it's a little bright there, but 78% of students, I mean, like, met or exceeded the standard on the final CASP assessment. So our goal is to get 80. I know the decimal points kind of throw off the rounding there. So would be either 80 or 81%, which would mean a 3% growth from the prior year. And like, what I like about what we're doing now, that we made this decision as a team last year, is that we're comparing cohorts for our growth goals. So it's the same group of kids rather than just saying 5th grade, like, hey, you got to do better than last year, but like it's a completely different set of kids. And so focusing more on the student growth and less so, you mean like on just like looking at like a grade level as the comparison, you mean like, or the name of the grade in this case.
This is probably something you can't speak to off the cuff, but throwing out there. So for instance, looking at the 8th grade right here, where they're currently at 82, last year they're at 85. And so we'd look to go to 87 as that 3% growth. It would seem to me that an important data point would be like, is 3% in the last trimester feasible? Like where were they last year? Where was 8th grade or 7th grade last year when they finish second? Is it possible to grow that many percentage points in a trimester?
So my off the cuff answer is yes. And just by sheer timeline, right? You mean like that, we have a third of the trimester left. So to close the gap of 5%, I do think is reasonable based off of averages of seeing this over like the last 3 years. And then what iReady does produce is they produce individual trajectory data of like where they should grow by the end of the year. And so while you're seeing this like big top view, the teacher themselves are looking at it from an individual perspective and for their class. And that is the value of this data ultimately, is on the individual level. This gives you a macro view, of what our staff can access.
And then when do notes go to parents during the trimester for ask for extra intervention?
Great question. Sylvia, do you think you can answer that?
Sylvia.
It's right after the end of the trimester. We will run the reports for iReady and then they go out immediately the next week. So it's usually a week to 2 after the trimester ends.
So then that would mean that students have already been notified, or parents have already been notified. Yeah.
For trimester 2. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll just say that I really, really appreciate the depth, the granularity here. I don't know that parents have access to this in most districts, and I just really applaud our district for putting this together, putting it out there, and then taking action on it, paying attention to it, and actually taking it seriously. I'd also say, though, to anybody watching it, that in the middle of the year, data can be noisy, just like, the first read on an inflation number or anything like that. So, read it, absorb it, but sit on it and don't overreact to it as well.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. And, I love the level of transparency, Golden Bell Award winning in our school district. And at the same time too, recognizing that the real value of this data, as Quinn said, is that this is what our teachers are accessing. And I want to give a shout out to 6th grade, for example, who really picked up the reins. Like, they looked at their data from last year and created a plan going into this year about how they were going to better support students. I think it's reflective in their data. You can see that as a progress that they have made strides with outcomes. And so to me, you mean like it is about where we finish. And I appreciate though that our staff is looking at this data and engaging with it. That is the goal ultimately.
Thank you
Great.
very much, and thank you very much to the sixth grade cohort.
Thank you, board.
All right, moving on to the next item, which is R 3123/24 Special Education Overview. Ms. Gluck.
Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and share with you the Special Education Annual Report. One thing that the presentation will cover is various aspects, including services provided, budget allocation, staffing details, and a comprehensive overview of our program, which has been focusing on inclusion over the last few years. Danny, can you hit slide? Thank you. One thing about special education that's really unique is it does hit upon all three of our strategic goals of community inclusion and excellence. Our program is devoted to expanding opportunities grounded in the research that shows that when students are included with their general education peers and they're engaged, that we do see them meeting the needs and coming up and having high expectations. The approach not only fosters academic success, but also cultivates significant social connections with other students. Slide, thank you. Some key points that we will be highlighting in this presentation is that our students who receive special education services have shown progress in the 2023 CAS summative assessment, specifically in the area of math and science. And then data from our second trimester, which Dr. Johnson just reviewed, shows that we are on par to achieving our academic achievement goals, and the focus on inclusion and special education has contributed to academic excellence. Slide. I love this slide because it does show that in the state of California, where the special education numbers are at 13%, Hermosa Beach, we are under that number with 11% of students qualifying for special education. And it should be noted that when we compare Hermosa Beach to other schools in the South Bay, we rank towards the lower end of students in special education. When examining our academic data for students in special education, it's important to note that the number of students in each grade level is insufficient for us to analyze cohort data. Therefore, we will assess the data considering the entire group of special education students as a whole. The data in the English language arts indicate a minor decline in performance among both students receiving special education, 2%, and those in general education, which was 3%. Regarding our mathematics, there's improvement in students in academic performance. Specifically, students with special needs, they've experienced a 5% increase in math performance compared to the previous year, while general education students saw a 1% increase. These scores can be directly correlated to our inclusive practices in middle school. We've added collab classes and math cushions, and we are going to continue to add additional collab classes next year. I'm going to say wow with science first. 23, we marked progress in our science test scores across the board. And we do test students in 5th and 8th grade. And our special education students improved their scores by 11%. To build on this, we've introduced interim science assessments in grades 5 and 8 for this school year, giving our teachers valuable data to support teaching and make adjustments in regards to student learning. Additionally, our middle school, we are currently in a pilot for science textbooks. And one thing our science committee really wanted to focus on is differentiated Lexile levels for students who maybe were not reading at grade level. So this way they could still access grade level standards, but still have access to the text that everyone in the class was using. When we look at our English language arts academic performance in iReady, Our assessment outcomes for second trimester, we see some significant upward trends among students, meeting or exceeding standards. We have a 13% increase from 2022 to 2024, and furthermore, a 7% rise in performance was observed from 23 to 24. Some areas to note is the reading coach. We have intervention reading teachers and foundations have been key components in our academic achievement, along with push-in services for inclusive practices. iReady math assessment outcomes for the second trimester also are really positive, with a 22% rise in the numbers of students meeting or exceeding standards since 2022. Additionally, the 2024 data highlights substantial progress in all categories, with a 3% increase of students who meet or exceed standards and a 1% decrease in students one grade level below and 1% decrease in students 2 or more grade levels below. So we've seen some positive trajectories there. Some previous areas to highlight is, once again, that collab math class. I'm a really big believer in middle school, coupled with the push-in services in the elementary school directly benefit all the students. So we're going to look at growth goals, which we did similarly in Dr. Johnson's presentation, but this one is focusing specifically on our special education students. So when we assess our yearly academic objectives for students receiving special education services, we are focusing on 2 key sets of data: the 2024 iReady results and the second trimester and the 2023 CASP scores. These metrics help us forecast desired performance outcomes and levels. Our current data suggests we're on trajectory to meeting those goals with a 3% increase. Same thing in the area of math, that 3% improvement is attainable based on the data that we show. So we're looking forward to seeing how our students will perform with their CASP results. When we look at our science data, we do need to just look at the California Science Test to look for that 3% increase. So we are aiming for 24%. The use of those interim assessments throughout the school year help our teachers monitor the growth of our students and provides our students also with familiar access to the platform to taking the CASP assessment, all of which positively contributes to student outcomes. This slide really just summarizes the last few slides that we looked at. As you can see, the CASP data reveals noticeable improvements in the area of math and science. In English language arts, there was a minimal 2% decrease according to the CASP results. However, when considering the trend observed from our iReady data that was previously shown, we have a 7% increase over the past 2 school years, so it does suggest that positive trajectory. First of all, the work that we're doing in Inclusion Hermosa is excellent work with a committee that I'm working with, and this slide really indicates what we're doing and how much we're doing across various domains. And the achievement that we are doing at the early grade levels really has a positive impact on our students. This graph really captures the multi-year commitment to inclusion, and it highlights many key initiatives. One thing is the Hermosa Beach Preschool in the early education. We have a lot of behavior interventions that we've implemented, and the formation and dedication of an inclusion advisory committee who are very supportive and proactive in providing suggestions on how we can better our program in the district. Professional development is another strong component that we look at when we develop our special education program. And you can see the increase in inclusion and achievement that has led to improved student outcomes based on the work we're doing. Our professional development plan is vetted by our teachers, our administrators, and our special education staff. So this contributes to positive input of everyone working toward the same goals. This next part of our presentation is we're going to be looking at the financial aspects of special education. So at Hermosa schools, both the general education and special education personnel contribute similarly to the budget, with 85% of costs dedicated to staff who educate and service our students. We prioritize our budget allocations toward inclusion and early intervention, aiming to close the achievement gap rather than focusing on compliance-related expenses. Our commitment lies in employing highly qualified staff who are dedicated to our inclusive practices and maintaining high academic standards and outcomes for our students. We'll be looking at 2 slides, and I will be presenting several points that highlight our progress as related to the budget. Okay, so this is our special education budget, and year after year, our special education spending has risen, with funds specifically allocated for staffing and inclusive practices, which is directly correlated to academic outcomes. Despite this, federal and state funding for special education has not increased over the past 4 years, leaving us with resources that fall short of what's needed to support a legally mandated special education program. An estimate of current projected actuals indicate that similar to the 2022-2023 school year, we are on course to staying within or even under budget based on our budget projections. In the next 2 slides, I will guide you through the budget increases for this year and next, illustrating how we're efficiently utilizing those funds to support academic excellence, providing opportunities for inclusion, and supporting our school communities. In the past 4 years, Hermosa has developed a comprehensive special education program, proactively supporting early education and inclusive practices. While our full-time special education teaching staff has been consistent since 2021-2022, we've added various specialists to enhance our program, as shown in the graph. One area to highlight is our expansion of paraeducation staff. The district's initiative to boost enrollment and the adjustment of TK birth dates have provided an opportunity for early childhood intervention, particularly for students who are unidentified with special needs. This proactive approach in addressing academic and behavior needs early on aims to narrow achievement gaps and establish a solid academic base for our young children. This is one of our special education teachers teaching. Our district prioritizes early intervention as a proactive measure aiming to support young students early on to reduce those learning gaps as they progress in age. Budget increases mirror our dedication to inclusion, community, and excellence, with the highlighted personnel positions continuing to bolster early intervention. So you can see in this graph where early intervention costs are and how we're supporting our students. Do you have any questions?
I'll look to my left first this time. Maggie?
Sylvia, such a good presentation. When we look at the growth of our special education, not the growth, when we look at our percentage of our population of special education, are we seeing different areas of ability grow in different areas? Is there a higher rate of hard of hearing, or is there a higher rate of vision? Are we seeing any specialties emerge that in the district where we're getting a higher percentage of one or another type of ability?
I can provide that data. I'd like to look like for the last 3 years.
Exactly, yeah.
And look and get you some comps so we can compare where we were at 3 years ago and where we're at now, and we can see where there's been increases.
Because it feels like the percentage has stayed the same, right? If national average is 10%, we're pretty much around that 11%.
We're 11 and the county was 13%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see a
Okay,
breakdown.
I'll
of-
get that for you
Yeah.
in a future Friday update.
And then my second question is, given how well our students are performing in terms of meet or exceed and the growth that they're showing in the meet or exceed categories, my assumption is we're spending the money right. Like we've had an exponential growth in budget, but it's paying off in terms of,
We've had a lot of great early intervention programs. I think the addition of a lot of the staffing that we've provided, that's outside of the special education staffing, teachers specifically, has been really positive in regards to our growth and supporting our students.
okay, thank you. And I just noticed in the appendices, there actually is a eligibility chart on that. Thank you. Good.
Kathy, any questions? All right. Thank you for the excellent presentation. I mean, and I want to commend you and thank you again for providing the additional budget detail and sort of helping us understand proportion of students, quality of care, and just what it creates in terms of a financial burden as well, how much of that the state covers versus how much we have to cover. I think that's all really kind of important for a small district like ours where all the dollars count. And I mean, the general impression I get, but I want to kind of check it with you. So in a number of places in here, you show sort of the special education population relative to the general population. And I don't have a lot of other district experience to compare it to. So I don't know if those gaps are, sort of within the norm and expectation, better or worse. So I welcome you to comment on that. But the general sense I get is that we, especially given our small size, are incredibly well equipped and, all the millions of citizens who are tuned in watching should know that, that their kids are being cared for in a district that provides a really broad and deep set of services, especially given our scale. So I think that's commendable to all of you. But if you could, any comments on just, how we're performing relative to what we could or should be would be welcome.
I think one thing that is important when you look at the data is to see the growth and percentage of students as they increase and compare that also with our general education population as well. The one thing that is important to note when we look at the data with special education is we cannot look at cohort data because we don't have a big enough cohort to look at it year by year. We have to look at it as a group, but we do see that positive trajectory, and those are notable. Those trajectory, the positive, we're going up.
We've compared in the past with county, state, and then local districts. I mean, and we compare obviously well above county and state, and we compare on par with our other cohorts. We'll follow up with a board update to do achievement comparison data for our local South Bay school districts to give the board that sense.
I just was reflecting off of slide 16 with the budget, and one piece that seems like it would be missing if we're looking at the full picture of how litigation figures into all of this. I mean, this is an assumption, but if I'm just like recalling through my head of where we've had to spend attorney costs, attorney's fees, they are more disproportionately spent in special needs than on general ed.
On the overall budget?
On the overall budget, yeah.
Yes, but I would say that in tracking that budget, that each year it has gone down for the last 3 years, and that includes pre-COVID as well. I think this comes back to that you invest on the front end, you create a good program, you get less litigation and pain on the back end, and that's because families are benefiting. And I think one thing I think we can concur that's within the presentation is that achievement for our students with special needs is going up, so it seems. And I also value the question though of how are we doing comparatively? That's an important one. And we've produced that data before for the board, and we can circle back and do that again because that's important to us as well.
I will say though, so a lot of the conversations that we have are necessarily in closed session when it comes to litigation, but I'll amplify what you were saying about sort of handling things on the front end. I'm really impressed now that I've been on the inside for 3 years with how proactive and sincere the district's efforts are at addressing these issues, and then finding not just a particular issue, but then getting at the root causes and saying, how do we make sure that, if we made a mistake, that we fix it, and that we are, offering the services we need to offer and heading off problems before they become problems. So that's not something that everybody gets to see. So, again, for all the millions of YouTube watchers, I just wanted to let you know that your district is being well managed in that respect for sure. All right. So now we move to consent. And for this, I need a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Thank you, Doug. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Consent items pass. All right. So now we move to board action, starting with Superintendent's S3323/24, Resolution 0923/24 to order biennial governing board member election, November 5th, 2024. Dr. Johnson.
Yep, we have two board positions that are up for election in the upcoming election on November 2024. And we need a resolution just to start to get our house in order to prepare for that. And approval is recommended. Thank you.
I'm kind of springing this on us.
Wait, the term is up, coming out? What?
Can I get a motion, please? Or unless there's any comments or questions.
So moved.
Thank you, Maggie.
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Item S34-2324, updates to board policies and administrative regulations. Dr. Johnson.
One part of this is straightforward, one part of it's not as straightforward. So this is just our consistent updates for our board policies. And there's a long laundry list of just healthy, keeping your house clean. With that, I did take the opportunity as part of that process to review the board policy on memorials, plaques. And specifically, we talked about a former board member who had passed away, and what type of policy needs to be in place in order to address. How to go about acknowledging any person like that, that is celebrated by the district. So in your enclosure, you do have current board policy, which is available to the public. And that's policy 1150, accommodations and awards. Policy 7310, naming of facility, and policy 3290, gifts, grants, and bequests. Across these three policies, I can safely determine that the board very much has the ability to acknowledge via memorial any member of the community or not of the community, and to place a memorial or recognition of that. And it is very much the board's discretion. The parameters, I think are pretty straightforward or common sense. And at the same time, the power rests with the board's discretion. About what is appropriate versus what is not appropriate. The good news about that is it's within your power. The bad news about that is it's within your power. And then just as an aside, I included a policy I found from a school district in Idaho that is very explicit about a process. As an example, not as a recommendation, and definitely not as action for the board to discuss. So while my recommendation for action is that your current board policy is suitable for you to be able to move forward with placing a memorial or plaque, I believe the board policy is sufficient. And then my other recommendation alongside that is to approve the updates to the board policies so listed. Thank you.
So just to clarify, the policies that were included in our folder are not part of the agenda right now. So these are for just mere discussion, no action right now, and the action is off of what's listed in the agenda.
The policies, aside from the Idaho policy, are already in your board policy. So they're available. The policy from Idaho is just a supplement. It's example. There's no recommendation on that policy whatsoever. because it's more explicit than what we currently have. And then the recommendation for action, I mean, like, is to adopt policies so listed as changes to our current board policy, and that's listed in your agenda item, which I'm happy to go through that list.
No, sorry, I was just thrown because the policy, the naming facilities, I felt would have been a separate board action item, because it's not part of this piece right here. Right?
I don't understand the question, but maybe a rephrase.
The naming of facilities is just a separate discussion item.
The naming of the facilities, well, we're not naming a facility.
No, no,
Tell me
just
more.
the discussion, sorry, I'm looking at the policy number 7310, which is titled naming of facilities. That's the policy number that's listed on our piece. So I'm just saying, like, this wasn't listed as the agenda, so this is technically just a separate piece that we're going to talk about. You want us to talk about it right now in addition to these things that we're voting on?
Correct, because like this is like a review of board policy, right? You mean like, and so every so often we do an updates to our board policy. And my recommendation to you on the board policy update, you mean like if necessary, regarding plaques, memorials, is your current board policy available to you that I say is sufficient to the board's ability to name a plaque, place a memorial? You mean like that an update to your board policy, from my perspective, my recommendation is not necessary.
Doug or Kathy, questions or comments? Maggie, anything further?
No, I move to approve the listed board policies and administrative regulations as noted in the agenda, and would reserve the right to talk about the naming of facility at another time because it's not a listed agenda item.
You can have discussion about your current board policy as you're updating your board policies.
Sure, but for fairness to the public, if they had any concerns off of it, like, it would be listed in an agenda.
Okay.
So my motion's on the table if anybody wants to second. I'm moving to approve what's listed in the agenda.
Which is where?
Item 34, 2324, update to board policies and administrative regulations.
Okay, there, none of them are listed by numbers, though. You're,
So off of our agenda.
In
full
the
agenda,
long
page
form of the
52.
agenda, it's all in the back there.
oh, got it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so that's what we'd be approving. And I believe these are just supplementary printouts to sort of make it more accessible for us to read.
That is correct, and that is your current board policy.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but current board policy, which is, I mean, I'm just going off of agendas and Brown sunshine rules right now, just off of how agendas get read, right? This isn't part of the public agenda, so technically we wouldn't be considering it as a motion to discuss right
But I
now.
think maybe I misunderstood. I think what Jason's saying is this is printed in the back, essentially.
No, but it's not in our agenda.
It's not in your agenda, but it's part of your current board policy.
No, I
Yeah.
understand
okay,
that.
got
I'm
it,
just
got
saying
it,
it's
got
not an agendized item right now, so
Yeah.
technically it's not subject for something to
That's right,
discuss
okay,
unless we bring it up
understood.
at
The-
roundtable.
The agendized item is updates to current board policies. I definitely hear you, Maggie, about the specifics of it. You mean like, so I'm perfectly comfortable with the board returning to this as a discussion item. I don't think the board is precluded right now from having discussion about that subject based off of board policy. That said, happy to move it to the next meeting.
All right, so we have a motion to approve this agenda item. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Right, the next item is S35-23/24, Los Angeles County Plan for Expelled Pupils. Ms. Gluck.
It's recommended that the board adopt the Los Angeles County Plan for Expelled Pupils. It's an annual item that we do.
Just adopting the LA County one?
Any color on what that plan is?
It's detailed in the board agenda.
Okay. All right.
I move to approve the item.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Moving on to business item B-111-23/24, application for a waiver for the unaudited actuals, current expense formula, minimum classroom compensation.
I'm taking this one for Paula. Approval is recommended to submit the waiver application. A long story short is that based off of expenditure formulas, we have to expend a certain amount on our elementary program versus our secondary program. We are off by 1.nothing%. There is no ramifications to that other than just notice and application for waiver. The reason being is in alignment with COVID dollars and some of the expenses, there was a shift. I mean, like in our expenditures, it should be naturally corrected by next year.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Nope.
No? Motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Doug. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Item passes. Moving on to personnel, P 31-23/24, except for filing the joint initial proposal from the district and Hermosa Beach Educators Association. Dr. Johnson.
Approval is recommended to accept our joint proposal. Kudos to HBA for helping us launch this thing and get our sunshines out there, and looking forward to beginning our negotiations for 24-25.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from our board?
Nope.
All right. I just wanted to echo what you said, Dr. Johnson, that we really appreciate all of our excellent educators, and we appreciate too our administrators and leaders who have maintained a fantastic and collegial relationship with them. I think that's helped in innumerable ways in our district. And so it's fantastic. And this is another sign of that. So thank you. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Kathy. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on. P 32-2324, tentative agreement between Hermosa Beach Educators Association and Hermosa Beach City School District on revised certificated bargaining agreement language. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, our negotiating partners. It was a great negotiation for the 23-24 bargaining. Their contract was ratified, and we are recommending for approval.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Maggie. Second
Second.
from Doug.
Should be me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Last item before roundtable, P 33-2324, tentative agreement between HBEA and Hermosa Beach City School District on revised classified bargaining agreement language. Dr. Johnson.
Approval is recommended. Again, thank you to our partners mentioned prior. And again, looking forward to 24-25 negotiations. Keep it going.
All right. Any questions or comments on that item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Kathy. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. And with that, we will move to board member roundtable. And we have a lot of time to kill in order to make Jason a winner tonight. So
I have nothing. Let's speed this up.
no comments?
Just kidding. No, I have nothing.
I have three.
All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
First of all, happy belated birthday to Hermosa Beach School District. I think we passed that anniversary while we were on break. So exciting that we were at 120 years. Thanks to the district for all the attention with our name tags and everything else that allow us to celebrate.
Kids started school in April, 120 years ago?
Yeah.
That's weird.
That's true, huh?
Yeah, I think it was the 4th.
The second piece is I did this in my own
The Julian
personal
calendar or something. Sorry.
capacity. I signed on to a letter that Al Maritsucci had put out. It was very last minute. It was 2 hours before the hearing, but our assembly member introduced AB 1825, which was called the California Reads Bill. And so it was allowing, so I signed on, not on behalf of the district, but on behalf of my own personal thing, supporting folks to allow to check books out without any sort of limitations on their ability to basically to combat book bans that might be happening. So supporting kids being able to access books that they want to read. And the third thing is I love to talk about the naming policy. I had never had a chance to read these things before tonight, so curious to hear other people's thoughts on the memorials and the other proposed language.
Anybody have comments? I'll confess first that I have not read those in detail either yet.
Was this,
Um,
this wasn't included in a board update, right? This is the first time we're seeing them.
I believe it was included in the board update, but I'll check back on that.
I don't remember. I was looking for it. I didn't see it.
So perhaps we should bring it back for discussion at some point, or as our veteran and pro.
I've never looked at the policy before, so I'm not sure of it.
We can bring it back.
Probably
for-
means it was written in the 80s.
We can bring it back for discussion for our May meeting.
All right, my only thing is the Dolphin Dash is coming up, so everybody should please register for the Dolphin Dash, which is happening back at school sites this year. View and Vista, I believe, on the 27th, and at Valley on the 29th. I may have those backwards, but it's something like that at the end of the month. But register, tell your family, friends, pets, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, grandparents, neighbors, acquaintances, enemies, everybody you know, to donate to the Dolphin Dash, raising great money for the PTO, as they do every year, so we can have all of our great programs. So please do so. Thank you.
Great. Maggie, I did review those board updates. You're correct. They were not included in the board update, and look forward to following up in May for a discussion item.
All right. I'll bring up the item that I mistakenly raised earlier. So there was a book was recommended to me, and I didn't pick it up for the longest time, and I finally did in the last couple of weeks. It's called Of Boys and Men. It's by Richard Reeves. He is I think he works at the Brookings Institution or something like that. It was very interesting. The core thesis of it, and it relates to our district, so be patient with me. I'll get there, I promise. The core thesis of it is that we're seeing a problem in our society around boys and men who are falling behind first in school and then later on in post-secondary school, and potentially you can sort of see the trend later on in life. Whereas, I think we're probably all aware of and rightly concerned about the fact that women still trail in the labor market, whether you look at that as earning 82 cents on the dollar or having less, board seats and C-level roles. What we are seeing over time, slowly, too slowly, is that gap is closing. What Richard Reeves points out is that the gap between boys and girls in education, starting in elementary, going all the way through to post-secondary, is increasing. And he makes the further point that, we shouldn't be thinking of these things as either we're on the girls' team or the boys' team, that both of these problems can and ought to be addressed. It does a very, in my view, compelling job so far. I haven't finished the book yet, but the first half is fantastic. He elucidates in quite compelling detail, at least to me, how and where and why boys are falling behind in education. It's most significant as it relates to ELA, and this has knock-on effects to how they do in secondary and high school, and then enrollment rates and success rates in post-secondary. And then it has a lot of knock-on social effects, including for somebody like me with two girls who wouldn't normally think to pick this book up, maybe, that women are now graduating from colleges that are disproportionately female heavy, and that creates all kinds of weird social dynamics, into a working environment where, depending on the profession that they may have chosen, is going to be disproportionately female heavy, that their peer set is light on accomplished and well-educated men, and that there's all kinds of bad social knock-on effects. The whys, there's probably a bunch of them. One of them that stuck with me as I was reading about it was just something that I think lots of us have seen, anecdotally, which is that boys tend to mature a little bit slower than girls in terms of when their prefrontal cortex grows. One of the remedies that Mr. Reeves talks about is potentially deliberately enrolling boys in school later than girls, starting them a bit later, so that the gap isn't so big, and that they're not so far behind their peers. But here's where I finally will bring it back to our district and where I think it matters to us. Thank you for your patience. This was news to me. This is not something I was aware of. Again, I commend our district for being very data-driven, data savvy, data rich, sometimes data overflowing. But one things that I don't see us do a lot of is gender splits of performance in various subjects at various grades. And this highlighted to me the potential value of doing that. And so, potentially if we could, I'd like to see more, gender splits of some of our performance data to sort of, just to make us aware if this issue that is showing up in data, by the way, it's showing up in data in not just the United States, but all across the world. For example, one thing that kind of really blew me away is that, Finland is often put up as a model of how, a good education system and a happy society. And if you actually dig underneath the data, it's entirely due to Finnish girls. Finnish boys are doing the same as US boys, but the Finnish girls are doing so much better than Finnish boys. It's raising the overall average up and making the Finnish education system look fantastic. And it's pretty amazing. And that this effect, this gender effect, is actually stronger, Richard Reeves finds, than class effects, wealth effects, and even race effects. So it's pretty phenomenal, interesting data to me. So I just thought I wanted to bring that out and encourage, our colleagues to keep their eyes on it, and our administration to be sensitive to it, and consider whether or not there's anything. We have really a thorough set of intervention programs in place. Potentially this is catching all those issues, but if there's anything else that we need to be thinking about or doing, then I'd encourage us to think about that. And that was my random comment for the evening. My roundtable. And I'd highly recommend the book, Of Boys and Men by Richard Reeves. I can't remember where it was recommended, but it was a pretty reputable source, so it wouldn't be hard to find. With that, if there's no other comments, I would look for a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
Thank you, Megan.
Second.
Thank you, Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.